8-bit video game trick your nervous system into physically beating your own heart to death. We've all heard the urban legends about cursed, haunted video games. But what happens when a 1980s arcade cabinet actually racks up a real-world body count? What if I told you that in the neon-lit, pixelated dawn of the 1980s, a machine was designed not just to take your quarters, but to take your life? Not a weapon of war, not a trap, but a brightly colored arcade cabinet. A machine that literally mocked you with a robotic voice as you took your final breath. Tonight, we aren't profiling a serial killer or investigating a haunted house. We are traveling back to the sensory overload of a 1982 arcade to investigate a terrifying, seemingly impossible mystery. Dim the lights, lock the door, and let's press start. It is Saturday, April 3rd, 1982. We're in Calumet City, Illinois, inside a dimly lit, cacophonous joint called Friar Tuck's Game Room. It's the golden age of arcade gaming. The air smells like ozone, cheap pizza, and stale cigarette smoke. Standing in front of one of the cabinets is Peter Burkowski, an 18-year-old high school student. Peter is a totally normal kid. He's healthy, he's a good student, and tonight, he is having the absolute game of his life. He's playing a newly installed, highly popular shooter. His hands are flying across the controls. His focus is absolute. The machine is relentless, throwing wave after wave of robotic enemies at him. But Peter is locked in. Within the span of just 15 minutes, he achieves the impossible. He notches not one, but two top 10 high scores. The game ends. Peter steps back from the machine, victorious. He reaches over to grab his drink. He takes one step away from the glowing screen and collapses to the arcade floor. Within minutes, paramedics are swarming Friar Tuck's game room, desperately administering CPR amidst the flashing lights of the arcade cabinets. But it is too late. Peter Burkowski is dead. And 18-year-old boy has just suffered a massive, fatal heart attack right there on the patterned carpet. A tragic, bizarre anomaly, right? That's exactly what the local coroner thought. But Peter wasn't the first teenager this exact machine had allegedly killed. And the truth behind the first victim is something the arcade industry was terrified to talk about. To understand what happened to Peter, we have to look at the machine that killed him. The game was called Berzerk. Released by Stern Electronics in 1980, Berzerk was a massive hit, and it was unlike anything else on the market. Why? Because Berzerk spoke to you. It was one of the very first arcade games to use speech synthesis. When you dropped a quarter in, it didn't just bleep. It said, "Coin detected in pocket." When you played, it mocked you. "Humanoid must not escape." "Chicken, fight like a robot." The gameplay was incredibly stressful. You navigated a series of electrified mazes, shooting at robots. If you dawdled for even a few seconds, the game deployed its ultimate weapon, Evil Otto. Evil Otto was a bouncing, permanently smiling yellow face. But unlike the robots, he was completely invincible. He could travel through walls, and he moved faster the longer you stayed in the room. He was the pure, digital embodiment of anxiety. You couldn't fight him, you could only run. And running from Evil Otto is exactly what 19-year-old Jeff Dailey had been doing just 1 year prior. In January of 1981, Jeff was playing Berzerk in a different arcade. He was sweating, his adrenaline spiking as he navigated the maze. He achieved a massive score of 16,660 points. And then, just like Peter, moments after stepping away from the machine, Jeff collapsed. At 19 years old, he suffered a massive coronary event and died before he ever reached the hospital. Two perfectly healthy teenagers, dead within a year of each other, standing in front of the exact same arcade game. It sounds like an urban legend, but when medical examiners finally looked closer at Peter's autopsy, they found a terrifying biological detail that turned this from a tragic coincidence into a legitimate medical mystery. When an 18-year-old drops dead of a heart attack, medical professionals immediately look for drugs or congenital heart defects. When the Lake County Deputy Coroner examined Peter Burkowski's body, he found no drugs in his system. What he did find was scar tissue on Peter's heart. It was an undiagnosed, pre-existing condition. Under normal circumstances, Peter might have lived a long, completely normal life. His heart was slightly compromised, but it wasn't a ticking time bomb waiting to go off on a random Tuesday. So, what pulled the trigger? The coroner officially ruled that Peter's death was caused by the extreme cardiovascular stress of playing Berzerk. Let that sink in. A medical professional went on record in 1982 to say that the flashing lights, the mocking robotic voices, and the invincible bouncing face of Evil Otto had triggered a fight-or-flight response so severe it caused a human heart to literally beat itself to death. Think about the human body. When you are chased by a predator in the wild, your brain pumps your body full of adrenaline. Your heart rate skyrockets to pump blood to your muscles so you can run. But what happens when your brain thinks you are fighting for your life? but your body is just standing completely still in a dark arcade. That adrenaline has nowhere to go. The stress compounds. The heart races faster and faster, trapped in a physiological feedback loop. For Peter and Jeff, their hearts simply couldn't take the overload. The mainstream media immediately ran with the story. Video game kills teenager, made for a great headline. But while the adults were debating the medical science, a dark urban legend was growing in the shadows of the arcades. A terrifying rumor about the Berzerk cabinet itself, that, if true, defies all logical explanation. In the early 1980s, the satanic panic was just beginning to take hold in America. Parents were terrified of Dungeons and Dragons, heavy metal music, and now, video games. When Jeff Dailey died in 1981, his high score was widely reported across local networks. The score was 16,660. It didn't take long for superstitious kids in the arcades to notice the numbers in the middle. 666, the number of the beast. Almost overnight, a mythos was born. Berzerk wasn't just stressful, it was cursed. Rumors spread like wildfire across the country that if you achieved a score with 666 in it, Evil Otto would come for you in real life. Some incredibly creepy accounts from the time claim that after Jeff died, his score of 16,660 remained locked on the machine. Even when the arcade owners unplugged the cabinet to reset it, they claimed the score burned itself into the phosphors of the CRT monitor, permanently visible, even when the machine was powered down. Was this true? Probably not. Screen burn-in was a real technological issue back then, but the satanic connection was pure hysteria. Yet it fed into a very real fear. This was the same era that birthed the legend of Polybius, the mythical arcade cabinet, supposedly used by the government for psychological testing. People were beginning to realize that these machines were altering human behavior, and they were terrified of what that meant. While the demonic rumors and the cursed high scores were just campfire tales spun by frightened teenagers, the psychological toll of Berzerk was absolutely real. And as modern scientists would later discover, what this primitive 8-bit game did to the human nervous system is exactly what modern developers are explicitly warned against doing today. Today, we have virtual reality horror games that look indistinguishable from real life. Yet, we rarely hear about gamers dropping dead of heart attacks in their living rooms. Why did Berzerk, a game made of literal blocks and pixels, claim 2 lives? The answer lies in game design. Modern games have a pacing rhythm. They build tension, they give you a boss fight, and then crucially, they give you a save room. A moment to breathe. A moment for your parasympathetic nervous system to calm your heart rate down. Berzerk had no save rooms. There were no breaks. It was an infinite loop of escalating hostility. The moment you cleared a room, you were instantly in another, harder room. And if you paused to catch your breath, Evil Otto spawned. The game was a masterpiece of psychological pressure. It weaponized audio theft, relentless taunting of the robotic voice, and combined it with the visual panic of an unkillable enemy. It bypassed the logical part of the brain that knew it was just a game, and tapped directly into the primal, reptilian brain. Peter Burkowski and Jeff Dailey were victims of a perfect storm. They both had underlying, undiagnosed, cardiac vulnerabilities. But the Berzerk cabinet was the undisputed trigger. It was a digital predator that their bodies responded to, as if it were entirely real. The deaths of Jeff Dailey and Peter Burkowski remain the first recorded instances of video games causing fatal medical events. They are a haunting reminder of the physical power that digital media can hold over us. So, the next time you're playing a game late at night and you feel your palms sweating, your breathing getting shallow, and your heart pounding against your ribs, take a step back, pause the game, remember Peter, remember Jeff, and remember that sometimes the machine wins. Some secrets are meant to stay buried, but we'll keep digging regardless. If you have your own theories on this case, I'd love to read them in the comments below. Until the next mystery, sleep well, and keep watching the dark.